If you've been on my channel for a while, you probably know that over a year ago, I believe in November of last year, of 2020, I did a video on how Disney was really sucking in 2020. And that's because every movie they had made, apart from a few, ranged from mediocre to absolute crap. And I pointed that out and I said, by that point, like, Safety and Soul better be goddamn masterpieces. Neither of them were, but whatever. And I'm like, but after that year, I started looking through the 2021 Disney catalog, and I started thinking, you know what? Let's see if they pick up the slack this year, because they have a lot of potential. We're getting Marvel back. We're getting some actual Walt Disney Animated Studio animated films. We're getting another Pixar film. And we're getting a stream of Disney Plus releases as well. So, did they improve in 2021? Well, first let's take a recap through 2020 and figure out why it was so bad, like I did last year. Or year and a half ago, almost. They started off with the Disney Channel original Zombies 2, which I didn't see. Onward, which was pretty mediocre. Artemis Fowl, which was pretty bad. Upside Down Magic, which sucked. Magic Camp, which was okay. Phineas and Ferb, Kansas Against the Universe, which was actually great. Mulan, which was dog shit. Secret Society of Second Born Royals, which was awful. One and Only Ivan, which was awful. Safety, which was good. And Soul, which was okay. So, you saw the problem there, right? One film was good, one film was great, a few mediocre/okay ones in there, and the rest were crap. And I started thinking to myself, what the hell happened this year? Well, I'll tell you what happened. All the good stuff got pushed back. There's really no other way to put it. Most of those were Disney Plus releases or got put on Disney Plus, and I believe one of those made it to theaters. One. And that was Onward, because that was before lockdowns. So, everything else was straight to Disney Plus, or the Disney Channel. So, let's see if they picked up the slack. First one this year was Raya and the Last Dragon. And it was good. I really liked Raya and the Last Dragon. It was a good return for the Walt Disney Animated Studios, especially after Frozen 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet, which were really bad, and most people will agree that they were pretty bad. And Raya was a nice change of pace from that garbage and back to what they're good at. It wasn't a musical, but we'll get to that one later. It has good voice acting, stellar animation, a really decent story, like an interesting concept of a story. Comic relief sidekicks that aren't obnoxious, thank God. There's even a child character in this, who's probably the most likable character in the film. Since when did that happen? So, I'm probably going to have less, because again, these are just kind of refresher memory here. I'm not going to go deep analysis into these, but yeah, Raya and the Last Dragon, it was pretty good. I think I would have given it a B+, because a lot of these I did the number reviews, and I kind of gave up on that. But this one I would have given a B+. Then in May, we got Cruella, which was great. A Disney remake, in this case, /prequel, that's actually legitimately really good. Who'da thunk? Disney remakes get a lot of shit, and for good reason, and the one last year was pretty awful, and they've also made really bad ones like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland, and Maleficent. You know the gist. And there are a few good ones I like, Aladdin, Jungle Book. You get the gist by now. But this one was surprisingly great. Emma Stone was perfectly cast as Cruella. Emma Thompson was a pretty good villain. The fashion designs, which I don't really care about in most films, but the costume design was really stellar in this movie. The side characters were pretty entertaining. The only really problem I had with it is that it should have ended earlier. Like, I think the last 20, 30 minutes of this movie probably should have been axed. But other than that, this movie was pretty good, and especially much better than the Disney remake from last year. I should, compare, if there's a similar one to one that happened last year, I'm going to compare them, just because why not? And then in June, we got Luca, a Disney Plus original, a Pixar movie that went straight to Disney Plus. And we're getting one this year too, with Turning Red going straight to Disney Plus. And we'll see what happens with Lightyear. And there goes my heater. But I digress. Pixar has not made that good of films in the past year. They used to be the pioneers of animation with some of the biggest masterpieces in animation from 1995 to somewhere around 2010 is when the slump started, after Toy Story 3. Because they made the Toy Story movies, Monsters, Inc., The Incredibles, Finding Nemo, I Like Cars, Ratatouille, people like WALL-E, I don't, but Up, Bug's Life, which I really like. And so they've made these masterpieces in terms of animation. Even if they weren't masterpieces, they were still pretty good, or at least liked by most people. But then around 2011, the shit started to hit the fan with Cars 2, and then Brave. Monsters U was okay, but it really wasn't what people were looking for. And then it was just all downhill from there. Good Dinosaur was terrible. Inside Out, I'm not the biggest fan of, honestly. Finding Dory was good, and then Cars 3 was good. I liked those. But then Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4 were awful. Onward and Soul, I thought, were pretty mediocre. Soul was definitely better than Onward. And people seem to... The more I look, people really seem to hate Onward. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was mediocre. And Soul was just okay. This one... It's better than the last few we've gotten, but I still wouldn't consider it a great movie. I still give it a fresh rating. I would give it a C+, which is, to me is still fresh. I think C is where it starts to go rotten. But because it has a talented voice cast, I'm not entirely sure the voice cast was like the right choices for these. Some of they just don't match up. I'm not one of those people that say diversity makes the film, because if you're like that, you're an idiot if you think diversity makes the film, because it doesn't. But it was a decent enough movie. I just thought it was kind of boring, and it was kind of predictable. I knew where they were going with it. But it does have some entertaining characters. Like, I think the one-armed chef, like, what's-her-face's father, I don't remember the girl's name, but her father, uncle, whatever it is, the one-armed fisherman, he's a really cool character. I really like him. I think the ending is kind of a cop-out, and I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was very predictable was the problem. But overall, still a decent film. July, we got a Disney Plus original called Spin. Didn't see it. Moving on. Black Widow. Yes! After 2 whole years, we finally get a new MCU film. We had been getting shows for a few months by that point. We'd already had 3 by that point. We were getting 2 more with What If and Hawkeye. But we hadn't gotten to see anything MCU related on the big screen in 2 years since Spider-Man Far From Home. Which, I'll be honest, is probably the worst MCU film. I don't think it's a complete cinematic disaster. Like, I probably won't get a cinematic disasters review because I'm coming around on it a bit more. But it's still not very good. Black Widow was definitely a return to form. People say, oh, it wasn't worth the wait. And those are the people that I don't take seriously. It wasn't worth the wait. What the fuck? How long were you waiting for this film? I know people have been wanting this film for probably a decade by this point, but nobody was really asking for a Black Widow solo film to the last few years. And I think this was probably around the perfect time to put one out after she died in Endgame. And honestly, it was a good send-off for the character. And it introduced pretty much everybody's new favorite character in the MCU, Yelena Belova, played by Florence Pugh, perfectly, might I add, and she's very entertaining in Hawkeye as well. But David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, they were very good as her parents. Again, the only thing that brought it down for me was Taskmaster. The character was really cool when he first showed up, when he was like copying her moves, and that's Taskmaster. He learns the moves and is able to copy them and use them against them. That's like his powers is literally to predict your moves in the comics. That's not how it was on the big screen, but I was okay with that. What I wasn't okay with was the twist. Sure, it kind of worked in the context of the film, but then just use a different character. Don't use Taskmaster if you're gonna change the character that drastically. But again, still a really fun movie, and I've seen it plenty of times by now. I've probably seen it about 5 times now, and I would have seen it probably more, but I've got more shit to watch nowadays. But yeah, it's a fun movie. Is it the best of the MCU? No. Does it make the top 10? It's definitely close, if not. Jungle Cruise. Ooh. I wasn't the biggest fan of this. Don't get me wrong, the first half was really enjoyable. It was funny, it was clever, it was well written, the cast was pretty good, there was good comedic timing, and the action sequences were pretty entertaining. But then the second half kicked in when all the supernatural elements started to kick in. That's where the movie kind of lost me. I liked the idea of this being kind of a Pirates of the Caribbean meets Indiana Jones, which is kind of how it was marketed. But then it went all kinds of stupid in the second half. Like, it's revealed that Johnson's character is one of the supernatural beings, was kind of stupid. They wasted Paul Giamatti. And while I think the brother of Blunt's character had a decent arc, might I add, she herself kind of turned into a boring character, and Johnson's character really, really didn't work for me in the second half. The supernatural elements were dumb, the fight scenes got really sloppy and relied too much on bad CGI, the sets weren't as creative, it just kind of fell apart in the second half. It's not an awful movie, but it's definitely not something I'm planning on watching again. I think I gave that one a C, and Black Widow, I gave an A-, I think. Yeah. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Hell yes. If you didn't see my top 10 best of the year, you don't know that this was my favorite film of the year. This was the number one. And I don't regret that one bit. This is a fantastic Marvel movie. It definitely made the top 10 for me. I think I listed out all the ranking in the MCU, and I think this one actually made it pretty high. Because it's just that good of a film. The acting and casting is on point. The story is very entertaining. The villain is really good. I like how they did the Mandarin justice in this, and he's very relatable. His methods aren't, but the character himself is relatable. He's just grief-stricken and wants to bring back his wife because she basically died because of him. Okay, I get it, and I like that they brought back Trevor Slattery in this film, showing that, yeah, he was just an actor hired by this guy, and then he was basically thrown in jail. I think that's pretty funny. The special effects look fantastic. The action sequences are some of the best in the MCU. They utilize the quick cuts and the long takes very well. It's not overly sloppy, and you can see the action perfectly. It's not over-edited, and it's very well shot. It's just, everything in this movie seems to work, and even the big, giant monster that they fight at the end, it doesn't come out of left field. It was setting it up. And the father ends up sacrificing himself for his son. The son ends up fighting the big monster, and it's still really well done. The fight scene is good, and the emotional scenes are very well done. And I like that the end credit scene, I'm pretty sure, is setting up for Galactus. We'll have to see. That's just my theory of it. Disney Channel's under wraps. Oh, dear Lord. I'm just going to give you a quick description. A Disney Channel remake of a Disney Channel movie. That enough said? In 1997, they released Under Wraps, which I believe was the actual first Disney Channel original film. And you know what? For the Disney Channel, it was pretty decent. It had a really cynical sense of humor to it, which I really liked. The acting was pretty good. The story wasn't terrible. And it was good, mindless fun. This was a dead-ass, shot-for-shot remake. An incredibly watered-down one, might I add, and that becomes apparent if you watch the first scenes of these back to the first scene of the original and the first scene of this one. It's pretty much a shot-for-shot, but it's so watered-down and lame. It goes from a creative way to kill somebody to the other one, someone being chased by some big-ass booger monster in a really cheap plastic costume. That's lame. And again, there's not much to say about this one. I didn't even finish this movie because it was a shot-for-shot remake. I even put up the scroll bar so I could see it popping up what was going to happen, and it was pretty much the exact same thing. I didn't need to watch the rest. So, yeah, this one sucked. It got an F. Shang-Chi got an A+. Jungle Cruise got a C. Yeah, Under Wraps, fucking F. This made the honorable mentions of the year, but I'm like, you know what? It's just too lame to put on the top 10. There's no point. Eternals. The one Marvel movie that everybody seems to hate for absolutely no reason. The hate for this one just seems like because it's an easy target. Had this come out this year or the year before, guaranteed people would have liked it just as much as all the other ones. So yeah, the hate for this one was just absolute bullshit. Because it was put between Shang-Chi and Spider-Man. It was just an easy target for hate. So yeah, that's why I didn't believe in the hate, and that was proof that Rotten Tomatoes is that the critics are bullshit. And that's why I no longer look at them. I don't care, because I know they're most likely going to be wrong. But everything in this movie seems to be pretty on point. The story is complex, but it's easy to follow. The special effects look fantastic. The action sequences are very well done. I like the characters. They're very entertaining and pretty relatable. The twist villain doesn't really come out of left field because it feels very natural. And could they have done without the huge sentinel rising up out of the earth and just kept with them fighting deviants? Sure, but you can tell this one's more setup work for other films. That's why nobody associated with Marvel and no Marvel fans care that other people don't like this one, because they know it's setting up for something even bigger. And it's still just a good movie on its own. Fuck the people who were hating this one. Home Sweet Home Alone. Ooh. The first in what is going to be a long line of Disney Plus dragging out these 20th Century Fox franchises and running them into the ground. This was ass. It's not funny. The slapstick comedy isn't funny. The verbal jokes aren't funny. The cast is pretty bad overall. The main kid is an obnoxious piece of shit. I don't know who to root for in this. Like, you're supposed to root for the villains? That's such a stupid idea. Why would you want us to root for the people who are trying to break into this kid's house? That makes the slapstick not funny because they want you to root for the bad guys, essentially. Maybe that's why they made Max such an unbelievable piece of shit. Nothing feels earned. The dramatic moments don't work. The comedic bits are awful. And the casting is just... Ellie Kemper can't act to save her fucking life. Rob Dempsey... Or no, that's not right. Rob Dempsey... That's not where... Whoever played the husband. I can't remember his name. He was fine. Stuck with this bad movie. And, yeah, nothing else to say. This movie sucked ass. Encanto. You know, this is another Walt Disney Animation Studios movie. And the first musical that they've made this year. And the musical of this year, I should say. And honestly, I didn't really like this one. I didn't. Everybody was claiming how it was such a freaking masterpiece, and I don't get it. I don't freaking get it. I thought the cast was fine. I thought the animation looks fantastic. But that's about it. I thought the story was overly condensed and not very exciting. It was marketed as this huge adventure, yet she never leaves the fucking house. Well, that counts as false advertising right there. The characters are mostly pretty annoying. They want us to do the whole thing of, oh, these people, oh, they have so much pressure on them to be perfect because they are perfect. And it's like, I don't feel sympathy for these characters because they're also assholes to the main character for absolutely no reason. And it's like the comedic bits aren't very funny. There are a few jokes that were okay, but all the funny jokes were in the trailer. All of them. The music isn't that great. I honestly don't really care for the songs. Disney's been pushing their songs to hell and back. Like their music channel on YouTube, they have been posting the songs or like different versions of the songs over and over for the last 3 months. And honestly, these songs aren't that great. The only song I really liked was the one I couldn't understand a word of what he was saying. Was the song sung by the one guy during the flashback. I'm like, I don't speak. Was it Latin? I understood a few words, but other than that, I don't know what he's saying. But honestly, the music was nice. I thought the music was nice. The flashback was probably the most interesting part of the film. I think that would have been a much more interesting film. And the singing was nice. But other than that, like everyone's pushing, we don't talk about Bruno with that song. I'm like, why? It's not that great of a song. It's just like I just don't get it. It's not an awful movie, don't get me wrong, and I feel like they shouldn't have gotten their magic back at the end. They shouldn't have. I felt like that. I think that was a huge cop out of an ending. I think they should have stayed. My camera battery's running low, and it gave me a heads up. I think they should have stayed without their powers, and I think that would have been a much stronger ending. But nope, they got their powers back. Great. Christmas again, another Disney Channel movie. I was planning to watch this one, but I just never got around to it. I don't know why. So, I got nothing to say on that one. Moving on. The last one. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The last one, unfortunately, the most disappointing. I really like the first three Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Fourth one can suck it, but I like the first three. And I was a huge fan of the books when I was a kid. I read probably the first 9, which was ironically The Long Haul, but I didn't read any of the others because I feel like after that one, where it was just one long road trip that was actually kind of boring to read, I started feeling like, okay, this franchise has officially lost steam. And now there's, 16 books? And I think there's a 17th on the way this year? Jesus Christ, I know Kenny needs a paycheck, but he's doing these now. He's making adaptations of his own books, and honestly, I don't have faith in the second one that's coming out this year. I don't. This was ass. It's only 50 minutes long, so you don't get any... So the story has no chance to develop. Greg's character fluctuates so often and is jarring. Rowley is just odd. He goes from really overly socially awkward to just a dick by the end. Like, you're supposed to root for Rowley more than Greg. I was rooting for Greg because he was entirely in the right in all the arguments. They made nonsensical changes to the source material. I like when adaptations change things from the source material, but they have to make sense. Having Greg be the guy who makes Zooey Mama and then Rowley stealing that, Greg's rightfully angry about it. Why am I supposed to feel bad for Rowley? I don't. Not anymore. They cut out integral scenes, the play, the fucking class favorites, which was like the main drive of the original movie and the book. Patty Farrell is gone, for some reason. They mention her name and they mention the play, but neither of them show up. There were multiple other scenes that were cut, just for seemingly no reason. What happened here? Ugh. That one was awful. So that's Disney in 2021. Did they improve themselves? Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. The 3 Marvel films alone was... And those things people are going to jump up my ass about Spider-Man. That's Sony. Doesn't count. So, yeah, they were definitely redeemed this year, but I still don't know what happened in 2020, why every movie they made was terrible. Not every movie they made this year was a masterpiece, and most of that was the Disney Plus originals, because obviously. And then the worst one was the Disney Channel original, because obviously. But I'm looking forward to 2022. We have already had an Ice Age movie that was terrible. All the other Fox properties that are coming to Disney Plus are going to suck. The Cheaper by the Dozen remake looks like shit. Just from the reports, from what I've heard of what it's going to be about. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Roger Rules is going to suck. The new Night at the Museum is going to suck. But, we've got new Marvel. We've got more Disney animation. We've got Pixar. It's shaping up to be a pretty good year for Disney. As long as you don't look at the Disney Plus crap. But, I guess we'll find out when 2022 officially wraps.